Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Love Me Twice, Say Me Thrice. Well, actually, this is the another MLFF content here. So yes, I finished a long bombarded of chapter 6. So today I'll be reading chapter 7, and you've seen all of the memories that they have between Lance and Keith, and then now they're separated away. Oh, actually, they are away from each other, and that's the past. Everything we did in the past, and now we're on to the present. We're getting there, okay? We're getting there, okay? We're getting there. We're almost done with it. So let's hop on to chapter 7. Oh, just a reminder that this chapter contains a brief sexual content slash implications. So I'm gonna have to censor this if there's some sexual content in there. Just read it at your own. Just read in your own risk or listen to it at your own risk because I will have to censor myself. So I'm gonna have to censor some stuff that the kiddies they don't want to listen to because there's gonna be a problematic. Okay, let's get started with chapter 7. So we'll get this thing out of the way. All right, let's go. Chapter 7. Never fall in love with them. Warning: this chapter contains sexual content slash implications. Listen at your own risk or read. Lance. It's the first word that leaves his mouth, rushing past his lips on the wings of a shuddering exhale. It slips out before he's fully pulled from the memory, when his vision's still blinding and bright, speckled with gray dots, with his own voice muted to his ringing ears. His body feels distant and weightless, floating in the void of nothing. His senses are disjointed, scattered, attempting to register the world around him, but misfiring and getting caught up in the fractured reality. Lance! His voice echoes in the void that's been carved out of his chest, a void he has lived with for so long, a void that is suddenly being filled, memories slotting into fireplace, piece by piece, filling a place that's always been empty and cold and nothing. But now it's something. Something so wonderful. Something so beautiful. Something that aches. Lance! It's a mantra. It's a prayer. It's a name that brings so much comfort. A wholeness he had never known he was missing. A warmth he had been lacking. An important piece of himself that had been missing. A treasured piece he can't believe he had been able to forget. The name slips from his lips as every memory drips into that voice in his chest, as each one settles into place, slowly clicking together, weaving through a fabric that binds together the fractals of himself, each one making him more whole, more full, until his chest feels fit to burst. Lance! Slowly, achingly slowly, the disjointed memories start to settle, start to bind together with his known memories, and his frazzled mind starts to see them as one whole, starts to process, starts to understand all the implications, all the truths, his story with Lance, because they have a history, a crazy, convoluted one of youth, loneliness, and innocent young, well, love, because he had loved Lance. He had fallen for that young fey boy when he knew that he shouldn't. And he hadn't done it again, without knowledge of his old infatuation, without knowledge of how much Lance had meant to him, what they had meant to each other. Keith had fallen for him again. As the blinding light fades from his vision, his senses start to come back to him, registering now that the disjointed pieces of self have solidified into one whole. He feels the tears cooling on his cheeks. He feels the way that his body shudders with each raspy breath. He hears the hum of electricity in the soft, hitched breath of the man in front of him. He feels his hands shaking as they cling to Lance's wrist. Feels Lance's hands, so warm and long and firm despite the way they quiver, holding on so desperately to Keith's face. He nails bite to Keith's skin. Lance's forehead bruises his own with how tightly they're pressed together, but he doesn't care. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. Lance! He surges forward, one hand leaving Lance's wrist to wrap around the back of his neck, fingers tangling in his hair, pulling him forward. Their lips meet, and Keith finally understands what it means to see fireworks, to feel something pop and burst in his chest, sizzling and oozing through his veins, a warmth of joy, of contentment, of comfort, of passion. Feeling so whole and full and loved, so full of love, so ready to burst with it, every nerve ending in his body crackling and splintering and fit to burst. His mouth fits over Lance perfectly, and he devours those honeyed lips like he's the last breath of air as he drowns in a raging sea. Lance's hands release their grasp, only to slide into his hair and grip tighter, weaving into his locks and holding on like a vice. Kate's skull prickles with the pain, but it's pleasant. It's also pleasant. All he wants, needs more, needs to drown in Lance until there's no more space between them. His hands find Lance's hips, holding tight and pulling him into his lap. He comes easily, settling with his knees, bracketing Keith's hips as on his thighs, adjusting without breaking their kiss, without losing contact. And Lance seems just as eager to devour him, perched on him, wrapped around him, clinging to him like Keith were his last anchor to sanity. Lance's tongue licks into his mouth, crashes their mouths together, teeth nip at his lips. Their kiss is bruising and firm, desperate and heated, and yet gentle, soft. Desperation and longing stem not quite from passion, though they do toe the line, but from the feeling of together, properly, for the first time in a long time, of being so lost and lonely and finally being reunited as they should. Kissing Lance like this, holding him like this, it's all so new, and yet it's so achingly familiar. Old memories, new memories, the here and now, the coalesce and collide and form something new, something exciting, something perfect. As much as Keith is enjoying himself, both of them cling to each other tightly, desperately pawing and clinging as their hips start up in a slow grind. He wants more, and he doesn't think he has the patience to wait. Gripping Lance's hips, keeping them pressed flush, Keith stands. He grins to the kiss as Lance gasps, scrambling to hold on. Together they stumble to the boredom. Keith's legs are shaking, and Lance does his best to distract them, lips and teeth at his neck, hot breath in his ear, hips grinding as best as he can against Keith, both of them hard and aching. They stop several times, Keith giving into distraction and pushing Lance up against the walls, pressing firmly into his mouth until Lance's lips are bruised and he's left dazed and breathless. Time is weird, hazy, moving too quickly, a whirlwind around them, and yet at the same time too slow, seconds oozing by like molasses. But finally they make it to Keith's room, and he stumbles in before kicking the door shut behind him. Distantly, he's grateful Cosmo didn't follow them. Distantly, he's also grateful and proud of his wolf's high intelligence and understanding. Distantly, he makes a note to make sure to feed him after he's done wrecking Lance within an inch of his life. Finding his bed is all muscle memory, turning and sitting on the edge of it with Lance snugly in his lap. But then Lance is pulling away, breaking their kiss and leaving them both panting into the shared space between them, eyes slitted and dark, Lance twinkling like midnight waves. Then slowly, so deliciously slowly, Lance leans back, the corner of his lips curling into a cold smile. He slides backwards, dragging himself along Keith's thighs until he slips off, taking careful and languid steps backwards. He turns, slipping his oversized jacket off his shoulders, down his arms, stepping over to Keith's desk and folding it gently, carefully, lovingly before setting it down. And Keith's heart aches, knowing that Lance had treasured that old jacket for so long. But he doesn't have time to lament, not when Lance is suddenly in front of him again, painted in the warm afternoon sun that peers through the spaces in his blinds, the golden glow warming his tan skin, reflecting off his eyes like it might off the ocean, the curl of those kiss-reddened lips, the lift of his cheeks that crinkled the corners of his eyes. Keith's so transfixed by it, the beauty of his face, that it takes him a moment to realize that his glamour is fading. Not all of it. Not the glamour that shimmers in his hair, on his high cheekbones, and at his ears, but the glamour that holds his clothes in place. It fades slowly, sparkling in the early afternoon light, drifting away until that golden glow ignites the flesh underneath. When he realizes what's happening, he blinks, lips parting at the sight before him, and Lance grins, coy smirk inching wider, smug and pleased. He's beautiful. Afro, really. Inhuman, but not in a way that screams danger. Not in a way that's eerily fey and sets his instincts on edge. No, he's inhuman in the same way statues are. Beautiful and perfect. Flawless in the eye of the sculptor. In a way paintings can capture the beauty beyond the limitations of the flesh. Except Lance is flesh. He's real. And he's standing before Keith with eyes only for him. Keith lets his gaze roam down the long, slender neck to broad and bare shoulders. The jut of his collarbone is sharp and tempting, practically begging to be marked by lips and teeth. A necklace woven into a net that holds an old purple glass marble, worthless really, except for the sentimental value, matching the gemstone in a cuff Keith keeps on his ear. Seeing it makes Keith's breath hitch, warmth flooding through him, pleasant and tingling. A well-defined chest and trim waist that makes Keith's hands itch to hold. Perky, dusty nipples pleading for his tongue. The sharp points of his hip bones and the deep lines that guide Keith's gaze to a thicket of dark hair. Long, swollen, hard and leaking. The tip being glistens in the golden sun. Keith's mouth waters. His lips feel dry. He licks them, eyes sliding back up to Lance's and catching that smug smile. A smile that almost hides the nervousness that shimmers in the depths of those swirling irises. It's a shyness that curves his posture just slightly. An uncertainty that has him shifting his weight, muscles switching and jumping beneath smooth, dark skin. He hides it well, but Keith knows him better than that, knows him better than anyone. Come here, he demands, holding out his hands, fingers grabbing at open air. He can't stand to see Lance so hesitant. He longs to show him just how beautiful he is, longs to worship him in the way he deserves. Will show him exactly what he does to Keith. But instead of moving toward him, Lance just tilts his head, a playfulness shimmering across his features. Not until you're as bare as I am. It's a tease. It's a plea. It's a demand. He reaches back instantly, grabbing the back of his shirt and dragging it over his head, tossing it carelessly onto the floor. He stands just long enough to shuck his sweatpants and boxers, refusing to let himself shame as he falls back onto the bed, squatting backwards until his back is leaning against the headboard, legs splayed open, lap waiting as he holds out his arms once more. And Lance takes a moment, let his eyes roam shamelessly and unabashed. Keith feels heat prickle beneath his skin, settling at his neck and hot at his ears. It's not embarrassment, not really. Lance has seemed like this, long ago and fairly recently, but this feels different. This feels new. But then Lance is stepping out to the bed, falling forward to crawl across it until he's settled once more in Keith's lap, bare ass shifting as he makes himself comfortable atop Keith's bare thighs. The air around them is cold in Keith's lungs, but Lance's skin is hot to touch. He leans up for a kiss, and Lance meets him halfway, slow and languid, memorizing each other, patient even as the passion simmers beneath the surface, ready to boil over. But then Lance is leaning away, hand on Keith's shoulder to keep him in place as he attempts to follow after him. He pouts, can feel it on his lips as his brows furrow, making a rumbling sound in protest. But Lance isn't looking at him. His eyes are on Keith's chest. His hand slides down to Keith's shoulder, over his collarbone to trace delicate fingertips over his sternum. His eyes are lidded, lips pursed, expression gone heart-wrenchingly somber. Keith looks down, and his stomach twists, breath leaving his lungs in a rush. It's there, the mark from his memories. One he's seen out of the corner of his eye when he wakes from nightmares. It looks almost like Shiro's, but not quite. Where Shiro's seven-pointed star is encased in the sun, Keith is surrounded by a long crescent moon. It's set right against his sternum, settled in the center of his chest. The spiked wings flare out beneath his collarbones. It looks like a tattoo, but he knows it's a brand, the mark of the winter night. Lance's fingers trace it, careful and gentle, and while it doesn't hurt, Keith can feel the phantom burn, echoes of the memory he now has, reminding him how it had seared into his flesh after he had killed the last night. It makes him dizzy, makes his breath hitch as things start to swirl, indication of the knowledge of his new reality sinking in. But Lance's touch keeps him grounded, keeps him clinging to this moment, the here and now. Lance's touch is reverent, and not nearly as frightening of the brand of the winter night as Keith knows he should be. But his expression is far too somber, far too distraught, voice pinched and tight as it whispers, "This is my fault, Lance." He reaches out, lifting a hand from Lance's thigh to cup his cheek, feeling his heart warm and the knots in his stomach relax as Lance leans into his touch, nuzzling against his palm. His eyes, however, stay on Keith's chest. His brows remain furrowed. "I never got to apologize," Keith chuckles, soft and low. "Faye, don't apologize. It's one of the rules. Apologies is admitting one was wrong, but they harm another." Lance's gaze flickers up to his, smile small but definitely there. "I suppose the human realm is starting to influence me." But his smile doesn't hold for long. It falls as his eyes drop back down. "This never would have happened if I had been more careful. And because of that, you stepped in, and now you're tangled in court politics. You know, it's not your fault. You said it yourself. The Winter Queen resents your place with Allura. She would have sent the knights after you either way." He rubs his thumb along Lance's cheekbone, right over where his glamour shimmers. "I'm just glad I was with you to stop it." Lance, however, doesn't take this as solace. He frowns, lifting narrowed eyes to Keith. "But now you're part of the Winter Court. You're an Ironblood, Keith. They'll tear you apart." Keith lifts his other hand, joining the first in cupping Lance's face. He brings him close, leaning forward to press their foreheads together until he can feel Lance's breath on his lips. And despite the close angle, he refuses to break eye contact. "I would do it all over again," he says, sharp and firm. He needs Lance to hear him. "To understand. I regret nothing, Lance." Surprisingly, he doesn't protest. He just smiles, small and wavering, eyes glistening, voice hoarse as he whispers, "I owe you my life." And that, Keith grins. The feeling of being whole, of having all his memories, rushing through him with warmth and bubbling giddiness. Again, a soft, ready laugh against his lips. Again, when he kisses Lance, it's slow and sweet, honey on his lips, seeping into his veins, but Lance is hot to the touch, and it draws out Keith's own heat, sparking and building a fire beneath his skin, a burn and an itch that refused to be sated, that demand he hold tighter, kiss harder, take, take, take. Lance pulls back, letting out a shuddering breath. "They're after you now. We don't know why, but if they find you, they'll see the mark, and—" Keith kisses him hard and fast, swallowing Lance's soft gasp and resonating moan, shoving his tongue past those honey lips to save the sound of it, to draw out more. When he stops, it's only to whisper against his mouth, "Not now. We'll deal with it tomorrow." One hand slides into Lance's hair, cradling the back of his head. The other slides down his side to grip his waist, pulling, urging him to roll those simple hips. Not now. They come together, two broken and jagged pieces, each with chips and hollows that house shadows and fear. Yet they slot together easily, filling those gaps, brightening the shadows, falling together in perfect sync, emotionally ready, physically desperate. Their kiss is a needy push and pull, matching the pace of Lance's hips as Keith's hands lead him into a slow, filthy grind. Not that Lance needs much direction. He picks it up easily and willingly, running against Keith in long drags, making his breath hitch and pulse run hot. He works himself up, head falling back and away from Keith to catch his breath, panting heavily, eyes squeezed shut, soft moans escaping those pretty swollen lips. Keith leans forward, mouth latching onto his throat and sucking hard, nibbling along sensitive flesh before letting his teeth really sink in, kissing the abused spots as color starts to rise, beautiful red and purple bruises, pretty little marks. Keith marvels at them, transfixed and fascinated. Lance has always been so fey, so inhuman, a living, breathing statue, and yet Keith can do this, can leave him hard, aching and panting, can mark up his flesh and bring new color to the beauty of Lance's canvas, can leave his mark. At times, Lance has seemed so untouchable, but here in this moment, Keith can see just how touchable he is, that he has been given the privilege and pleasure of taking Lance's body, of molding his flesh to Keith's own, of leaving his marks. He's so real, so solid, so perfect as he writes atop Keith's lap, and when Keith takes them both in hand, fingers wrapped tightly around both their arms, hold them together as he starts up a painfully slow rhythm that has pleasure sparking through his veins in the best of ways. Lance absolutely loses it, body coiled tight, nails digging into Keith's shoulders. Keith can feel the vibrations of his moans as he sucks in that dark mark into that pretty little neck of his. And unfortunately, as much as he loves torturing Lance, it's torturous enough for himself to run his patience thin. And when his patience finally snaps, he's not gentle about it. He shifts their weight suddenly, getting both hands under Lance's thighs to lift him off his lap and dumping him to the side, leaving him bouncing on the mattress with a squawk of protest as he rolls away. His feet have barely hit the floor before he's on the move, close in distance to the dresser in only a few long strides. Finding where he's buried his bottle of lube takes time, hands shaking and knees threatening to buckle. Ha! He breathes out, lips curling victory as he pulls it from beneath the pile of socks. Found it! He turns and frees, breath rushing out of his lungs. Lance lays on his rumpled sheets, long and lithe body splayed out in the afternoon sun. The slats of light from the blinds ripple across tight, muscles and flex beneath smooth skin. He's propped up against the pillows, arms bent above his head, hands relaxing, fingers curling. The eyes fallen open, just a little, just enough to tease. That arch, not painfully or obviously, just enough to stretch himself out like a cat in the sun, hard and curved, the bead of dripping to his stomach. Head turned and watching Keith through half-lidded eyes. A predator. He had always been warned of fate like this, of fate like Lance, high fey, powerful and dangerous, beauty beyond comprehension, delicate, strong, tempting, oh so tempting, deliciously sinful, achingly sweet, dangerously addicting. Lance should be, by all rights, exactly what Keith should fear, and yet, seeing him laid out in Keith's bed, body shamelessly on display and lips curling in a coy grin, relaxed and confident like he belongs there, Keith can't bring himself to have any regrets, not when that cold, dark hollow in his chest finally feels warm and full. He takes his time prepping Lance, stretching him open with the utmost care, moving gently, slowly, making Lance ache with it, making him riff and bad. And Keith watches it all, settled between his legs, slipping the third finger and watching the beautiful way Lance's back arches, the way his chest rises and falls with each breath, watches the way his fists curl into the sheets, eyes squeezed shut as he gasps. Such a powerful creature, such a dangerous creature, leaving himself vulnerable, trusting Keith to take care of him, letting himself be at Keith's mercy, despite the fact that Keith is an Ironblood, that he is the Winter Knight. It makes Keith's heart swell, tight and full against his ribs, overflowing with every pulse, oozing like fire through his veins. Lance loses patience first, gently kicking Keith away and scrambling to sit up. He dives toward Keith with a determined glance in his eye, and while Keith knows he could fight, he sees no reason to. He lets Lance manhandle him, lets himself be turned around and laid back on the bed, head and shoulders propped on the pillows. Lance is straddling his lap once more, risen up on his knees to hover above. He's tall and proud, confident and beautiful, practically regal, despite the dark flush to his skin and the heavy pant of his breath. As he reaches behind him, takes hold of Keith's and sits upon his throne. His breath is shaky as he settles. Keith watches him through lidded eyes, hands rubbing restlessly along his thighs, nails curve into the skin, despite the grab hold out and unable to stop moving. Lance is tight, swallowing him with a heat that borders on unbearable. But Keith can feel his magic unfurling, trembling alive, seeping out into his veins, excitement prickling beneath his skin, crackling like flames. And as Lance begins to move, rising up on his knees before sinking down, quick and sure, those flames are stoked into a raging wildfire, one that burns him, through Lance, leaping and sparking where they touch, licking along their skin and swirling low in his gut. The pace Lance sets is quick but steady, rising all the way up before sinking all the way down, low and heavy strokes, riding him hard. And it's all Keith can do to hold on. And hands on his waist, his hips, his thighs, whispering soft encouragements and hissing ragged curses. Lance leans forward, holding himself up with two hands on Keith's chest, fingers splayed wide and curled, nails biting into flesh, gripping the mark on his chest, palms burning on the brand, as if to reclaim the Winter Knight as his own, though Keith already knows he is. And when Lance starts to tire, movements become sluggish and face pinched as his legs begin to ache. Keith takes over. He grabs Lance's hips, fingers curling to his ass. He plants his heels and thrusts, setting a new pace, quick and brutal, driving them both rapidly towards the edge, toppling them both over. Lance with a choke cry, falling forward over Keith's chest, and desperately seeking his mouth. Keith kisses him, all teeth and no finesse, as he topples over after him, spilling inside him, hips thrusting erratically through it as Lance's body goes tight and wound. The woman holds, breathless and weightless, before they both crashing back down, falling together, heavy and exhausted, sweat-soaked skins sticking together, chest pressing and pulling. Keith wraps his arms around Lance, holding him tight, refusing to let this moment end, and Lance simply rests, breath evening out against his collarbones, fingers illy twining with Keith's hair. The afternoon sun is still bright where it shines through his blinds. He has no intention of either than leaving this room until the sore sated, and that sun has long since set. Ooh, wow, that was a long part of this chapter. Is it hot here, or is it just the story that I read? I think it's just you guys. Is it you guys, or is just the story keeps getting hotter and hotter as it goes on? No, that's just it. That's just that briefly sexual content there. So, well, that's all there is. And I forgot to mention that Keith will be the next successor after Sindak. Hold on, let me put my lips are chapped today. Man, my lips are dry because of this story that is reading all of this. Oh yeah, well, let that whole thing sink in for a moment, and then when we come back, let's continue on with the story, okay? I'll have my moment sink in here and then let's do more. But not the sexual scenes up, so we'll move on. Sorry about that, Cosmo, he mutters, letting his dog in from the outside and setting a bowl of food on the ground. He kneels down, running his hands through thick fur, smiling as Cosmo wags his tail. Got a little caught up in Lance. Cosmo doesn't look at him, wholly concentrated on eating, but Keith gets the feeling that he understands. When he emerged from the room, exhausted, sore, and buzzing with warm contentment, Cosmo had been sleeping on the couch. He had regarded Keith with excitement, bounding over to the back door, easing the guilt Keith had twisting in his chest. Now that he and Lance are probably done for the evening, he figures Cosmo can join them. Lance had expressed that he doesn't want to leave to bed all night, and Keith can get behind that. So he'll just bring his dog and his laptop, and they'll curl up together watching movies until they fall asleep, like they did when they were younger. The memory makes Keith smile, warm bubbling in his chest, oozing from that space that had once been cold and hollow. Then he is ripped from his thoughts as the front door bursts open with enough force to crack into the wall. Keith! He's on his feet in seconds, adrenaline surging through his system and putting him on edge. Instant takeover. In the blink of an eye, he's pivoted while he stands, throwing an arm as his memorial mark burns, blade materializing quickly and blood pushing it through his palm and into his hand. He's crouched low, arms up and at the ready, the magic in his core unfurling and crackling like fire through his veins. Cosmo curls around him, fully forgotten, hackles raised and lips curled back in a snarl. And then they both pause, faced with nothing more than a fragile Shiro standing in the doorway. He locks his eyes with Keith, his own wide and wild. Something about the magic look puts Keith on edge, and even the Shiro's sighs, entire body sagging with relief. Keith is slow to relax. Keith, Shiro breathes, stepping into the house and shutting the door behind him. Thank the sun, you're alright. What's going on? He asks, the dagger slowly easing back into his skin, crinkling beneath the flesh of his arm. He shakes his hand to ease the sensation, but his eyes remain narrow on Shiro, heart still racing. What? Shiro scoops, shaking his head as he drops his bags. He bends down to untouch his. I'd like to ask you the same thing. You didn't show up for work, and then I heard of a strange attack in the subway. Humans are saying some bombs went off, but it sounded fake to me. I tried calling you, but you weren't answering. Neither was Lance. He faces looks up, eyes going wide, and they settle on Keith's bare chest, no longer hidden by his defensive stance, the brand of the winter night on full display. He hears the air rush from Shiro's lungs, voice strangled, and hoarse whispers. You... He swallows hard, visibly trying to piece together the shattered remains of his composure. What happened? Keith's hand moves to his chest, fingers feeling along the edges of the mark. The texture is different, just a little, just enough that he can feel it had been burned into his flesh with magic. He swallows hard. Right. Keith. They both turn as Lance stumbles down the hall, one against the wall as he passes in the doorway to the living room. Despite the fact that he could easily use his magic to not only dry himself, but also glamorous in clothing, Lance insists on being wrapped in a large, fluffy towel after a shower. Something about it feeling nice against skin. I heard a loud noise. Oh, hey, Shiro. He relaxes, grinning as he straightens, one hand holding the towel securely around his waist. Shiro just stares, eyes wide and owlishly blinking as his gaze drips from Lance to Keith and back again. The silence is palpable, tension rising with each passing second. Keith clears his throat, feeling the heat of embarrassment prickle at the back of his neck, burning at his ears as he shifts his weight. I don't understand what's happening, Shiro says slowly, and Keith can practically hear the gears turning behind those words. It's complicated, Keith tries, but Lance immediately scoops. It's really not. Expression hardens, something serious and solemn overtaking his easy posture as his face shifts. The Winter Queen's servants attacked us on the subway. They were after Keith, and we don't know why. When we got back, His former mask starts to crack, biting his lip as he glances at Keith. He asked me about his memory for the third time, Lance says softly. A hesitant smile touches his lips. I removed Alora's spell. So he remembers? He does. He knows what this means? He does. And you too. I'm not sure anything has changed, Lance says, thoughtful, wistful. His smile widens, head tilting as he regards Keith fondly. But it feels different. Keith meets his gaze, unable to hide his grin, unable to stop the bubbling warmth and giddiness that grips his heart and spills out into his veins. Shiro clears his throat, awkward and stiff. Right, well, we have a lot to talk about. Tomorrow? Keith asked, small an exhausted hope. Shiro sighs, a small, tired smile curving his lips. He looks more at ease now that he's home, now that he knows they're both safe. Perhaps even now that he knows that Keith knows. Tomorrow, he agrees. We'll talk tomorrow. There's some tension going on between Shiro, Keith, and Lance. Shiro's really worried about Keith, that he's okay, and there's nothing dangerous going on. And he heard that there's like a queen's servants, one of their servants from the Winter Court. They're coming after Keith. They're not coming after Lance, they're coming after Keith. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what they want. Well, they don't know what they want. Shiro doesn't know, Keith doesn't know, and Lance doesn't know what they want with Keith. But thankfully they're safe. For now. And Shiro decided to talk with Keith about what is going to happen. So just prepare yourselves, because this is going to be, it's a big one. Probably a big one. Tomorrow, unfortunately, comes too soon. Keith wakes in his bed alone, exhausted and disoriented. No Cosmo and Lance leave him to wonder, in his sleep-addled state, if he imagined the whole thing. But Lance's jacket is still folded on his desk. His body is definitely still sore, and when he looks down, the mark on his chest is a stark assurance that it had all been real. That doesn't, however, explain why he's alone. Slipping out of bed, he pulls on boxers and a pair of sweatpants before pausing at the door. Normally, he would just go without a shirt, unable to be bothered this early. But his fingers idly trace the star on his sternum, stomach twisting in knots. He ends up grabbing the t-shirt before padding out into the hallway, and pauses as he enters the living room, struck by the strangest, most domestic scene he's ever seen. Shiro sits in his armchair, one leg crossed over the other, phone in one hand and a mug of coffee in the other, wearing his pajamas. Lance is in the kitchen, standing in front of the stove, one hand in oven mitt to handle the metal of the pan, and spatula on the other, rather than glamoring an outfit of his own. He's wearing Keith's pajamas. Cosmo sits patiently next to him, tail wagging idly, eyes locked on food. Keith's chest feels full, pressure against his ribs nearly overwhelming, warm blood in his heart and rippling through his veins with every beat of his pulse. Morning, Shiro grunts, taking a sip of his coffee. Keith stares, blinks, and then mutters a barely coherent morning as he shuffles into the kitchen. Good morning, Lance greets, humming contentedly as Keith steps behind him, wrapping his arms around his waist and hooking his chin over his shoulder. You can cook? Lance shrugs, leaning back against Keith's chest. Huck has been showing me some things. He reaches over, poking an empty mug with his spatula. Should've made coffee too. I got a mug out for you. Later, Keith mumbles, arms tightening as he buries his face in the curve of Lance's shoulder and nuzzles against his neck. The bruises are still there, the markings Keith had left with his lips and teeth. It's thrilling to see them, even more so that Lance hadn't bothered to glamour them away. The food ends up being mediocre, but Keith has been exposed to Shiro's cooking, and Lance looks so damn proud of himself, so Keith would never complain. Afterwards, he settles on the couch, and Lance curls up beside him, legs slung over his lap, head on his shoulder. Curled up at his side with Keith's arm around his shoulders. Looks so content, smile tired but vibrant. Cosmo lays at his other side, head on Lance's lap. He's not sure where to begin, but thankfully, as always, Shiro has him covered. So, he says as he runs his fingers through the mop of white hair. He leans back in his chair with a sigh, meeting Keith's gaze with tired eyes. You know, Keith nods. I know. You remember everything? Yeah. So, you know how you got... He draws up, gesturing vaguely to his own chest. Keith purses his lips and nods again. I do. And you know what it means? I do. And he does, sort of. He's not sure it's ever been explicitly stated, but he's gathering up the pieces to form a full picture. To save Lance's life, Keith killed the last Winter Knight, and thus took on the mantle himself, which could only happen because his mother's blood is apparently of the Winter Court. As the Winter Knight, he would be the assassin of the court. However, his armor allows him to not abide by the laws that govern them. But the mantle is for life. Thus, the only way for them to get their knights back would be by Keith's death, which wouldn't be too much of an issue, given he's lived in hiding for nearly 10 years, if not for the fact that the Winter Court has apparently taken notice of him. Shiro nods. He moves on, neither than willing to go over these finer details aloud, not when the occasion of it hangs so obviously in the tension of the room. Shiro clears throat. So, yesterday, Lance has lifted his head from Keith's shoulder and sitting at the illustrator. I've been followed recently. I've noticed the Queen's servants watching me, and I had stayed away for a while to hopefully throw them off. He glances sheepishly at Keith. I thought I had lost them. I wouldn't have come back if I knew they were there. I wouldn't put you in danger like that. Keith's arms tighten around his shoulders, offering a small smile. I know. I don't blame you. Lance relaxes, but Shiro's expression pinches, brows furrowing as he stares at his coffee in thought. They've been following you, but they were after Keith? Lance says, I'm sure of it. When they attacked us, they were aiming at Keith. Do you know what they want from him? No, he sighs, leaning into Keith's side. His fingers illy scratch across his fur, eyes downcast. I think they just recognize that he's important to me. I think they want to use him against me. I don't think they realize who he is. Oh, that's not good. But it's better than the alternative. Shiro sighs once more, and as he eyes the two of them, he smiles for the first time that morning. I'm glad the two of you are alright. So, he leans forward, resting his elbows on his knees, eyeing them both over the steeple of his fingers. What are we going to do now? It's not sure. So, people already knew, well, they knew that the servants are coming after Keith. They're staring at Keith and Lance, mostly on Lance, but they focus on Keith right now. They have no idea what they want from Keith, because he knew that he'll become the Winter Knight. So, is we the assassin, so Keith would be the assassin, and Shiro, oh gosh, Shiro will have to fight off against Keith as a shield. But that will put you guys into the, oh, what is this? The prediction. Oh, what is this one? Oh, I don't know. Oh god, I completely forgot what the thing is. Like the, oh, foreshadowing. Yes, yeah, foreshadowing. So this may be a foreshadowing of the story. So keep an eye on that, because they're probably coming after it. But who knows what's going to happen? Who knows? They decided to keep a low profile for the next week. He calls his clients to reschedule, claiming to have some sort of flu. Shiro still goes, reasoning that they don't know if the druids are aware of where Keith works or if he's affiliated with Shiro. And if they do, it seems best for Shiro to keep functioning as normal, as if Keith's whereabouts aren't his concern. Not that it's easy for him. Keith can see how much he hates leaving every morning, how worried he is behind that crippling, fragile mask of confidence and casual ease. He calls Keith throughout the day and hugs him tight every day when he gets home. Keith acts like he hates it, disgruntled by the smothering. But he hugs back just as tight, and he answers every phone call. Shiro also forces Paige to take the week off from work, just in case. He doesn't want her anywhere near the potential crossfire, and despite her loud protests, Keith thinks she appreciates it. Instead, Shiro calls in Matt to work the front desk. They take very few appointments. They bide their time with tense smiles and stiff postures. Meanwhile, Keith is more or less under house arrest. He's not allowed to leave, the threshold being his last line of defense. The blinds and curtains are drawn only enough to let in minimal light. Only their backyard is considered safe, and only after Cosmo has run out and scouted the area for any sign of Faye. Feels trapped, restless, and caged, pacing the dim house that's supposed to be his sanctuary, but ends up feeling like his prison. But thankfully, Lance is with him, under house arrest, just as he is, laying low, together. And they keep each other company. They keep each other distracted. They keep each other occupied. They cuddle on the couch, watching things, and then end up making out, hips grinding, breaths heavy. They cook together and then end up with one sitting on the counter with the other between their legs. They shower together and Lance teaches Keith how to relax in the bath, something he's never had the patience for until he was leaning against Lance's bare chest with strong arms wrapped around his waist. They spend their afternoons with Cosmo, their evenings with Cheryl, and their nights together, wrapped up in each other, tangled in the sheets, talking long into the night as the moonlight peered through the blinds. They talk openly for the first time since finding each other again, about Corv, about life, about what they've been through. They laugh without strain, freely and honestly, and Keith feels giddy with it, lighter than air, warm and content. Being Lance had been natural and easy, fulfilling and addictive, but now it's just so much more. For the first time, there were no secrets, nothing hold them back, no reason to hold back because they're in this together now, for better or for worse. I couldn't stay away, Lance admits one night, curled up at Keith's side. Her fingertip illy traces the 7-point star. He's taken to doing that a lot lately. Like somehow he might be able to wash the stain from it and make it beautiful. Though, despite being a mark of death, Keith finds it beautiful in its own way. It's a mark he got saving Lance's life, and he'd do it 100 times over. He wears it with a sense of pride, even if Lance and Cheryl don't understand it. Keith hums, fingers of one hand running through Lance's hair, his other hand buried in Cosmo's fur. I just missed you. I worried about you, wondered about you. Hunk had let it slip that you and Cheryl were living near him, and I just wound up there one day. Keith exhales a sharp, short laugh. Just wound up in the human realm? Lance turns, nuzzling to Keith's shoulder. You can feel his smile. Yup, just went for a walk one day and ended up in the human realm. Visited Hunk, caught sight of you, and then couldn't stop. He sighs, ended in a huff. Yet despite the dramatics of it, he sounds content. His hand slips down Keith's chest, fingertips moving in a lazy, teasing trail ever downwards. Everyone warned me that Iron Bloods were dangerous, but no one warned me that they were tempting and addicting. He chuckles. Funny, everyone warned me that fate could be tempting and addicting. Lance humps, shifting until he's on top of Keith, chin resting against chest, body settled between his legs, Cheshire grin lighting up his eyes. And yet you fell for me anyway. I did. Twice. So yeah, everything seems so dangerous right now. So Keith and Lance, they're now keeping together. They're now each other's company. So they're like a partners in crime, or they're ride or die. Trying to protect each other from utter fate. Really in the bad and yet the worst way. Well, I don't know what's going to happen here. This is a big one. There's the big one coming, and like I always talk about, this is going to be one of the intense moments, like the climax of it. Not the other one that we're talking about. It's like the climax of it. But it's about to rise a little bit, but we're on to the rising moment. So, oh boy, this is it. We're in for the rising moment. At the end of the week, Cheryl leaves to visit the summer court for the first time since this arrangement began, and Keith spends the following days high, strung, and worried. Not worried that they'll hurt him, but they won't let him come back, that they'll take Cheryl away from him, that he'll be alone. But Lance assures him that Laura won't do that. She is just reporting to her, covertly and secretly, about the situation and Lance's whereabouts. It makes him feel better, but he doesn't fully relax until a couple days later. He's lounging against the kitchen counter, texting Paige while he gives Lance some privacy to speak with Honk over the phone in their room. Then suddenly Cosmo is sitting up ramrod straight, ears perked forward, eyes locked on the front door. The second the key touches the lock, Cosmo is shooting towards it, and Keith is honestly not far behind. "Whoa there, Cosmo," he laughs, nearly getting knocked off his feet. "Miss you too, buddy." "You're back," Keith says, plain and simple. To which Shiro just smiles, small and fond. "I'm back." He rushes forward to Shiro's offered embrace, sinking into him as he had so many times growing up. Ever patient, ever strong, ever secure and grounding. He lets out a heavy breath and feels the tension ooze out of him, and he likes to think he feels Shiro do the same. "So, how did it go?" he asks 5 minutes later, and when they're both settling on the couch with a beer. "As well as it could have, I suppose," Shiro says, taking a long drink. "I managed to meet with Laura in private and explain the situation. She doesn't know what the Winter Queen is planning, but she'll look into it. For now, she wants us to lay low." He nods, humming his acknowledgement as he fills with the label on his bottle. "Is she going to call Lance back?" he asks, softly. Shiro pauses a moment before saying, "At some point, yes, but she agreed to give you both some time together before she does." He lets out a long sigh, sinking back into the couch cushions. Cosmo comes to sit by his feet, head resting in Keith's lap as he idly scratches behind his ears. "Keith." He rolls his head where it's resting on the back of the couch, eyeing Shiro with a raised brow, but the man isn't looking at him. "I'm sorry. They aren't supposed to apologize, Shiro," he says, teasing, falling flat as Shiro's brows furrow. "I know," he chuckles rather. "I haven't picked up from this realm, but I am sorry that this happened to you. I am admitting my guilt in this. If I hadn't failed, Shiro, then you wouldn't have needed to step in. It's my fault you were branded, and my fault that we had to take away your memories." He pauses before continuing, soft and heavy. "It's my fault you had to forget Lance." It makes his heart ache, hearing Faye admit guilt so blatantly. It's something they never do. It's so incredibly human, and Shiro sounds pained, not by the admittance of his guilt, but by simply feeling that guilt. He has been holding onto it for so long. An emotion like that must tear him up inside, fighting fiercely against his fake nature. But no matter how fake Shiro is, he was raised human. He's lived as human. And Keith hates seeing him so vulnerable when he expresses those seeds of humanity. He scoots over, letting his head fall against Shiro's shoulder, leaning up against his side. "I forgive you." A long pause. Several silent breaths. "Just like that?" He nods. "Just like that." With a relieved sigh, Shiro sinks into the cushions next to him, both of them kicking their feet up on the coffee table. "There's something else I want you to know." "I don't want you to think I never cared. I was following you before it all happened. I could see the strength in you, and I liked seeing the joy you brought out in Lance. You reminded me of myself." He reaches over with his free hand, setting it on Keith's bicep, squeezing it gently. Watching over you was my assignment, but I took it gladly. Caring for you wasn't part of my job, but I did that gladly too. Nothing about this changes the years we spent together. I still took you in. I still raised you. We're still family. I need you to know that." Keith smiles, small and fond, laying his hand over Shiro's, squeezing back. "I know, Shiro." He knows because he feels it. He knows that what they have here, this whole life they built, is real. Shiro guiding him, training him, preparing him, helping him grow into the man he is today. All of that was real. It wasn't an assignment from the court. It was all Shiro. And if he ever had any doubts, well, Shiro can't lie. Everyone is sorry for what happened, but I saved Lance's life. I got a brother. I got a stable life. I got Pidge as a best friend. And I got to fall in love with Lance all over again. He takes a long pull from his beard, making a show of sighing afterwards. I don't regret any of it. Shiro chuckles, soft and low, Hope things continue to turn in your favor. Yeah, he says. Me too. Aw, wow. Feel like the relationship between Shiro and Keith that finally have a brother in your life. So, a brother. Shiro is wanting to bring all this to Keith's life so that he will build up into what he is today. Because Shiro is trying to take care of Keith when he was about like 16 or 7, yeah, he like 16 or 17 years old. And it took them years. It took them a few years that he's now grown up. Training, everything is now coming to pair. But Shiro decided that he'd secretly tell to Allura about all the situation. But Allura's decided that Key and Lance to keep them a while, and then when time comes, Allura has to call Lance back into the realm to get all the situation coming through. I told you, there's probably a big one. Kind of rises up a little bit, so but yeah. Okay, let's go. Wow. Pidge breathes, sunk low in her chair, beer bottle hovering near her lips. Forgot. I never seen Shiro get so flustered before. I'm embarrassed for him. Besides her, Matt sniffles, loudly and obnoxiously wiping away Foster before pulling out his phone. This is the greatest day of my life. Lance, you've known Shiro the longest, Hong says, leaning over the arm of his chair in an attempt to at least appear like his whispering. Have you ever seen him like this? Lance shakes his head, lips spread in a grin that's absolutely delighted. Nope, never. They're all sitting around in the fire pit in Shiro and Keith's backyard, built out of stone and brick, all of them relaxing in lawn chairs made out of wicker instead of metal. After several weeks of isolation, and no sign of the Winter Queen's druids watching them, they finally got fed up with being alone and on edge. Instead of going out, they invited all their close friends over. As it turns out, they weren't the only ones who had been high-strung with worry. Everyone could use an evening together, enjoying each other's company, pretending that courts don't exist, temporarily dismissing the giant elephant in the room. And somehow, against all odds, Key and Lance managed to convince Shiro to invite Adam. Key thinks it was really Lance who did it. His speech about not letting the courts dictate their lives and finding their own happiness in quiet moments like these was extremely heartfelt. Key could see the moments that Shiro cracked, his desire outweighing his caution. So now, here they are, all together, in a bubble of peace, in a bubble of warmth and contentment. Paige and Matt leaning close, whispering as they film. Hunk and Shay across the fire from them, shares close to one another, and they are third and fourth fade that Keith has ever willingly invited over the threshold of his home, and can't bring himself to regret it. And Lance sits at his side, their own chairs close, their ankles hooked together, Lance's fingers intertwined with his own. The air is cold. The Keith can feel the heat emanating from his skin. Shiro is across the patio, where Adam is manning a grill and cooking them all the dinner that Hunk had prepared. Matt had brought the grill, shuffled into the backyard with Keith's help, but Adam had offered to do the actual grilling. Somehow, he fully believed Shiro Hunk's excuse of being highly allergic to metal. Though Keith boasts, it's fairly believable when you know nothing of Faye, but have witnessed the blisters that form when Shiro touches iron. I've known him for years at court, Lance says, fingers idly playing with Keith's. It's a lazy touch, a subconscious one, makes Keith smile. I've seen him approached by many beautiful Fae trying to vie for his attention, some more bluntly than others. I've seen him hold the court's complete attention. I've seen the court criticize to pick at him, but I've never seen him be anything but confident, sure, and, well, Shiro. Is he like this at home? She asked, leaning over to Hunk to look at Keith questioningly. He shakes his head, unable to wipe the smug and amused smirk from his lips. He's never going to let Shiro live this down. Never. I've seen him get shy and embarrassed when I bring up Adam, but never like this. Shiro stands by the grill, a notable safe distance away from the metal, and listens avidly as Adam talks. He speaks casually, waving the grilled tongs around as he does, wearing the cook apron that Matt had insisted on. Cher watches him with complete and devoted attention, with absolute stars in his eyes. In from here, he can see how the silver depths of them swirl and glisten, and he wonders how Adam could even possibly think they're human. They can't hear the hushed conversation, but they all know when Adam makes a joke because Cher's laugh is loud, bright, and extremely genuine. His eyes twinkle as he smiles, cheeks flushed with a warm red that he doesn't bother to hide with glamour. He isn't even sure he thinks to do so. He's been around humans far too much for that. And who knows, maybe he likes that Adam can see what he does to him. As they watch, Adam leans close, a coy smile on his lips, as he mutters something low. And Cher's skin darkens even more. Eyes going wide before he looks away, a shaky laugh escaping him. He looks down, busying himself with petting Cosmo, who has stationed himself at the grill and the smell of food. But even as he tries to hide his face, he can see how happy he looks, how soft his smile is, how soft his gaze is, and it feels so full, chest fit to burst as warmth blooms and blossoms and spills out through his veins, because he's happy for Cheryl, a man who had his family taken away when his feigned nature was revealed, a man who had his life taken away when he was given the mantle of knight, a man who has managed to claim a life for himself, a small pocket of family and contentment, a man who is learning to live again, to allow himself to be happy, to chase his desires like a true fae. And here Keith is, learning to do the same. He looks around at the faces of his friends, of his family. Most of them are fae. Some of them are druids. One of them, hopefully, if Adam chooses to stay, is human. And Keith, he's happy, in a way he never thought he'd be allowed, in a way he only ever once dared to dream about, when he was young, before those memories were taken away. But they're back now, and he's more determined than ever to keep a firm hold on this happiness he's found. So he relaxes into the warm atmosphere. He doesn't let himself worry about the mark on his chest or the Winter Queen's druids. He laughs when Paige and Matt use their abilities to trip Shiro with a wayward root, causing him to fall into Adam's arms with a flustered stutter. He holds Lan's hand like he never wants to let go, and beneath their chair, where their ankles and hooked together, through the cracks in the patio stones, Keith can see a forget-me-not growing. That was, feels so believable right now. Alright, well, it all comes down to this. This is kinda, feel like I want to close this page ever before. So, alright, time to finish up this page right here. So, all of Keith's memories come and go through and through. And when all that memory is gone, it's gone. And there's nothing that he will forget for all of this. It'll be over. Whatever that may be. I'm not sure this is a good idea, Lance says, stepping wearily into the garage, hand lingering on the door frame as his eyes dart around. Keith can't blame him for being nervous. Not even Shiro likes to be in the garage. It's full of metal tools and chemicals and all things Keith uses to fix up his bike. All things that Faye find repulsive and deadly. Do you trust me? He asked, already moving over to one of the shelves to grab his newest helmet, one that's blue, one with absolutely no metal components. You know, I do, but Lance's eyes linger on the rusted metal toolbox, nose curling in disgust as he takes in the smell of oil. This seems like a little much. You talk about wishing you could ride on my bike for months now. He steps up to Lance, pulling his attention back by pushing the helmet into his chest. He leans over, head to sit, lips pulled up, voice slowly says, Are you scared? Keith has the immense pleasure of watching emotions flicker over Lance's face. He knows Lance is fully capable of hiding his thoughts. He's seen the mask. It's ever been used against him. He's seen it hide all his pain and doubt and uncertainty, leaving only a bold, confident, and coy Faye with the world wrapped around his finger. But now, as every day goes by, That mask seems further and further away, ever since his memories have been returned. Lance has been more relaxed. He lets Keith in, and he lets his emotions out, wild and chaotic, letting them touch every bit of his features. It's beautiful, like watching a flower bloom. And Keith knows his statement to how much Lance trusts him, how comfortable he is with him. It reminds him of when they were younger, before Lance had perfected his mask, and when they were both reckless and open. Surprise, shock, offense, pride, stubbornness, determination, each and every one of them beautiful as they dance across Lance's sharp features. You wish, he snaps, taking the helmet from Keith as he glares, lips pursed into an adorable little scowl. You'll be fine, Keith says, chuckling softly. He reaches up, because he can't really help himself, and tugs Lance forward by the back of his neck, kissing him slow and steady, smiling into it as he feels the tension melt out of him. Then he pulls away, turning and heading back towards his bike. You're wearing several layers of actual clothes and shoes, so that will protect your skin, he says as he swings a leg over the bike, settling on the familiar worn leather seat. You'll be holding on to me, and the only metal you might touch are the sides. But he reaches out, pointing at the parts of his bike where he had used Velcro on thick squares of leather to cover the metal. It's not pretty, it looks strange and out of place, but it makes Lance safer, so he doesn't really care. I cover up those parts. The soles of those boots will protect your feet. He smiles, holding his own helmet in his lap, but Lance still hesitates, hovers near the door, fiddling with the helmet in his hands. He looks over the bike, worried and anxious. Lance, Keith says softly, holding out a hand. Trust me. He meets Keith's gaze. He's still nervous, still biting his lip, brows still furrowed, but his eyes, they swirl and swim with so much warmth, so much trust. He takes a deep breath and steps forward, momentum never faltering as he strides toward Keith. He hesitates for only a moment before swinging a leg over the bike, settling on the seat behind him, and shifting around to get a feel for it. Keith feels him sigh, long, heavy, and relieved. See, he says, nothing to worry about. What about the Druids? Lance asks. We're supposed to be hiding. They could still be out looking for us. For you. Keith taps his finger loudly on his helmet, turning the smile over his shoulder. They won't be able to tell it's us with the helmets, and since you're wearing human clothes, they won't even notice your glamour. We're safe. Lance smiles, echoing. We're safe. We're doing this. His grin widens, breathless, as the excitement finally starts sinking in. We're actually doing this. With helmets on and Lance's arms wrapped tight around his waist, Keith walks the bike out of the garage, out into the street. He revs the engine just to hear Lance's startled gasp. The bike roars to life, familiar vibrations running through him, comforting and grounding. By him, Lance is plastered to his back, but he's here. He's doing this. He trusts Keith. No matter how nervous he is, he knows how desperately and wistfully Lance wants to try this. And Keith just wants to make him happy. They shoot off into the night, going far too fast for residential streets. He takes Lance to the city, weaving through cars until the lights around them blur. He takes Lance out onto the country roads, where they can go fast and dangerous in the dark of the night. Slowly, Lance starts to relax. Slowly, he starts to appreciate the thrill of it all. Eats up the danger. Trusts Keith to keep them safe. He stays plastered to Keith's back, but he leans into the turns. He laughs, loud and long. He lifts a hand into the air just to feel the fast whip of the wind past his skin, tugging on his jacket. The air is cold as it tears past him, but Lance is all the warmth he needs. In here, under the stars, moving fast with freedom singing in his veins, with Lance at his back and a laugh ringing in his ears, Keith feels truly alive for the first time in a very, very long time. Wow, this is a really good chapter. So we started off in a sex scene, and now they're all being aware, and they finally have the moments before all this, the commotions of the winter court happen. So gotta watch out there, because this is going to be the downfall. But that will hit up to the climax. So this is going to be the biggest one ever to read out. Man, this is a very long one. Well, not very long one, because they kind of shortened out that chapter. Not really. Still give you the same amount of time. But hey, this is a really, really good chapter. It's a nice chapter. Just living the life for good moments, you know. Just love it. So there's a lot of things happening. There's a lot that's going through. So once this prepped up for whatever the next chapter is going to be, yeah, it's about to go down. Better keep listening to it, because there's a lot of things happening. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this calm before the storm. Yep, I give you that little hint there. So you enjoyed this calm thing. So hey, this is gonna be a lot of stuff happening through the next chapter. You know, the storm is coming, right? Time to hit us like a hurricane. Time to hit us like a hurricane. So here we go into the next chapter, but that will be in the next video. So okay, thank you guys watching this video. See you in the next one. Okay, bye now.